Hello and welcome to the Capital Games Movie Club. I'm the Wiz.
And I'm Zero.
Zero. Last week, from last week we decided to watch, an Asian action movie. We watched Volcano High, one film that you recommended. I then countered and said, I'm going to recommend an Asian action film. And I said we're going to watch The Raid Redemption, Gareth Evans's 2011 action film, starring, I should have looked this up earlier, Iko Uwais and Annetta George. Get into what we feel about the movie. Zero, I'm really interested to see what you think of the film. So go ahead. What'd you think of The Raid Redemption?
The fight choreography is really good.
Yeah.
It's a little bit on the gory side, so for those who are a bit squeamish on that, this is probably something that you may not make it through, especially within the first few minutes. Just there's some brutal executions.
Lots
So,
of blood, I would say.
yeah.
You don't see body parts or bone or like insides coming out, but blood. Lots of blood. You are right on that.
But yeah, just lots of really insane choreography and for the fight scenes and stuff like that. Um, a little bit more violent than what I'd like, but that's just kind of my personal preference on things.
Hmm.
It's definitely kind of a crime action drama, uh, especially when you find out that just everything is not as it seems with the raid, so to speak. But yeah, just overall, just a really it's hard for me to say fun, mostly because of just the level of violence in it. Because I mean, uh, it's definitely not me taking like morbid enjoyment in it, but just yeah, just really amazing choreography for the fight scenes and everything. But yeah, just there's a little bit of drama that we'll get into
Yeah.
during the spoiler territory. But yeah, just overall, just seemed like a fun enough movie, just with the wild choreography just all over.
Did the violence turn? Did the blood turn you off to it, or was it just something that you were like, eh? Did you feel it was unnecessary to a certain extent?
It just was a little bit on the extreme side, for me, because I
Okay.
remember when the movie had came out. Just I had some friends who um, weren't weren't quite like um, academics on movies and stuff, but they were the type that like films with explosions and stuff like that. And like, oh man, the raid is
Yeah.
so good. Just anyone who thinks it's just too gory is a fucking sissy. And I'm just
Mm,
like, ooh, I don't know if I'd say it's grand cinema there, buddy, but just from the previews I've seen, the fight choreography looks pretty good.
yeah, it's definitely not grand cinema. I will agree with you there. Oh, look, I've seen some gory movies in my time. I don't think it's that gory, but if like blood spurting, bloodletting, deep gashes and wounds and stuff like that does bother you, then yeah, I could see why you could be bothered by that. Um, it's not cartoonishly violent. Let's say, a Tarantino film, but it's stylized enough where if I would say you feel the impact and it feels real, but it may not be. It might be a little stylized, but it definitely has an impact that you feel throughout the entire film. So yeah, if you, I guess you'd be right on that. If you are bothered by that, maybe not the best movie to watch. I guess I didn't think about that, to be completely honest with you, because I saw this, God, in 2016, I think, around the time where Baby Driver came out, is when I saw it,
Mm.
and yeah, I after watching this, I kind of before I watched this, I forgot about the blood in the movie because I watched it and I was like, whoa, I didn't remember this. So yeah, okay. But yeah, I can see why if bloodletting makes you squeamish, this might not be a great movie for you. Good.
Overall, just I will admit that Indonesian, Singaporean, and Malaysian film is definitely sort of a blind spot, since I don't really have much cultural background there. Most of my cultural background is more towards um, uh, China, China and Japan, with where a lot of my cultural interests lie. So yeah, this film is definitely kind of more of a weak spot for me because just I unfortunately don't really know much about the Indonesian, Singaporean, or Malaysian film scene.
Okay. Um, when I first saw this film years ago, I really liked it, and I just love the visceral feel of the movie and how the fight scenes are choreographed and how brutal some of the takedowns are, because it really you like I said, you really feel the impact in some of the fight scenes. But I also will say that this is a simple film. It has one premise. It sticks to that premise. It doesn't really deviate that far in between. It's basically about these group of cops who are trying to infiltrate this building that is filled with drug dealers and criminals. And that's it. That's the movie. That's all it's about. You get some good action scenes, get some good gunplay, and that's the movie. Done. Nothing more. Nothing more complicated than that. And I found that kind of refreshing because some films will try to add a little more complication to it to try and maybe flesh out a character or pad the timing of the movie so it's not like an hour long. But this movie didn't do that, and I would say it's as brutally efficient with its time management as it is with its fight choreography. I think that, because of that, the pace of the movie goes at a nice clip, and by the time you're done, you're satisfied. I was satisfied and enjoyed the movie like immensely. I enjoyed it so much, in fact, that immediately after watching it, the first time, I went to watch Baby Driver, and I was like, "Yeah, this doesn't really." When compared to The Raid, I was like, "Yeah, this doesn't do it for me at all." But after watching it the second time, I wasn't as wowed by the fight choreography and everything. But I still think it's solid. I still think it's a good movie. And if you haven't watched it yet, I would definitely recommend it. It is a vision. Well, it's not visually striking, but the choreography and the fight scenes are very well done. I mean, very well done. I like some of the fight scenes last. What do you think, Zero? Like maybe 5-6 minutes long, especially the last fight scene between. Well, we'll get to spoilers, but the last fight scene I think was a little bit higher than 5 minutes,
Yeah,
and most times that's not the case. Really, they break it up with editing, or they just section it off to where maybe the guys get a break and then they go. But in this film, it seems like they're going 100 miles an hour constantly. So there's that aspect. Go ahead.
yeah. So I mean, just there's pretty much that the fight scenes they're pretty quick, and before you know it, just they're over. But they're, as you had stated, they're fairly consistent about stuff, and just there's no extra filler. Just I mean, there's some occasional plot discussions, but I mean that's really as much as deep as it goes.
Yeah,
Just it's not anything extremely serious. Just hey, this is how shit's going down. This is why shit's gone wrong, and just that's mainly about it. So
yeah,
just if there's one thing the movie does well, it is just keep to its premise and just doesn't give you any sort of just extraneous other stuff. It just kind of keeps 100% focused and driven on just where things are supposed to be, and just give um, doesn't give anything just too extra to just kind of pad things out. It's just right then and there, which again, kind of refreshing to see because just a lot of times they're just movies that will start off pretty solid and then they will just kind of decide and go, yeah, so we're gonna try to add this thing that we think might change things up, and then of course when an actual practice is just kind of like, maybe just try to focus on what you're doing because
Yeah.
as what you're trying to do here, just to kind of throw an additional wrench into the works is just not working.
Yeah. Movies now, especially action movies, they tend to have a percentage base of 60% action, 40% plot. But what they do is they take the action and then put a long stance of plot, then an action sequence, then long stance of plot, and then the final action sequence, and then that's the movie.
Yep.
This movie, I think, is more. I would say, maybe you don't agree with this. This percentage is maybe 85% action, 15% plot, where it's action, 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 little plot, action, 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 little plot, action, action, done, and that's the movie. That is surprising. That is very refreshing. What's also interesting about the film is, and this is more a behind the scenes thing. If you don't really care about this aspect, I understand, but this movie was made in with about $1 million, and that surprised me because even though it's not an extravagant looking film, it's pretty basic to a certain extent, especially with the setting and the lighting and everything. It still looked like a standard action film. Like I would have guessed 20 million is what the budget would have been in this, but for this to be just $1 million estimated, surprised me and pleasantly surprised me. It just showed that the filmmaker knew how to make the film and knew how to do it effectively in this. So it didn't have the feel of, say, something cheap or something that needed to be scaled back, and obviously scaled back. So yeah, I actually was surprised by that. Anything to add with that?
No, I mean it. I can definitely agree that it is just focused. It. I don't want to sound like I'm kind of just clowning on the movie or anything,
Okay.
but yeah, just it. Um, it's it's fairly basic in what it's trying to do, and it's nice because just uh, it just is focused on what it's trying to do instead of just trying to do a bunch of things at once and failing at everything.
Yeah, no, that it's not clowning at all because is what you're saying basically is it's doing exactly one thing and doing it well enough that the film itself is captivating and or maybe not captivating but enjoyable. And I think a lot of films need to take that into consideration sometimes when writing or making their films, that sometimes less is more. Sometimes just shining the plot to a nice polish is better than giving it window dressing. I I get what you're saying, and I agree with you. Like you can't call this a deep film at all. It's not. Like you barely learn anything about the characters. I don't think you learn anything about the characters, really.
One bare detail, and then one detail that's revealed towards the end later.
Yeah, right. And especially the hero of the film. Like you learn one or two things, and that is it. And honestly, that's all you need, really, because it's not really that important. But yeah, like it's like I said, it's brutally efficient in its choreography and in its focus. It's basically you. It really is a film that if I knew if you're an action film fan, I'd say you definitely should watch this because it's exactly what I think a lot of action film fans and those that are not like film buffs but like regular like people who just like to watch movies to enjoy them. Like if you're an action film fan, my god, this would be perfect. Not a lot of dialogue, not a lot of story, just constant action, and that's it. And unfortunately, most people probably won't see it because it's in a foreign language, which we've had discussions with this already. It annoys the shit out of me. But even then, like, I would still, to those people, I'd say the dialogue, like, it literally is like 5 minutes of the film. Like, five
Yeah,
minutes.
and it's fairly basic dialogue too, so it's not like high Shakespeare or anything for anyone who's
Right.
worried about the dialogue. But yeah, it's just simple, brutal lines that sort of sum up the brutality of the situation.
Right. And, like, I would even say, hell, okay, if someone would say, well, then if it's dubbed, I'll watch it. Fine. It doesn't matter in this aspect. Like, if you would have said, like, I need to watch, like, a Tartakovsky film only if it's dubbed, I would shake my head and go, yeah, you're gonna miss a bunch of stuff. But in this movie, no. You basically it is we're here to take this person down. Let's take this person down, and then we can't do it right now. We have to do this, and that's it. That's all it is. So even if you can't find it dubbed, I would still say you're not missing much if you really hate subtitles. So I would still say to those who are listening to this and saying, "Ew, a foreign language film I have to read while I'm watching." Blah. I'm like, just give it a shot. It is a lot of fun, and you don't need to know much about the plot. I mean, if you talk to us as spoilers, like, here's the funny thing, Zero. When we get into spoilers, it's not going to matter.
Yeah.
Because when we get into spoilers, we talk plot details. It doesn't fucking matter because when you watch the film, you're watching the film for the fight choreography, and unless we give a detailed breakdown of the fight sequences, which we're not going to do, it's not going to matter if we give the plot details. We can tell you the ending right now. It doesn't matter. What matters is how good the fighting is, and it's excellent. Excellent. So, yeah, like, I'd say watch it. It's great. It's a really good movie. Anything more to add before we get into spoilers?
Not really. Just
Yeah.
it's an all right film with excellent fight choreography. It's focused um to just being what it's supposed to be. It doesn't throw in any extra wrenches or tries to do some sort of like mind fuck plot twist or anything like that. It's just 100% driven to just do what it's supposed to do, and it's great for it.
Yeah.
It's unfortunately a little gory, which may turn some people off.
Yeah.
And then there's also the part that you just mentioned, which was just it's a foreign film, so some people might go, "Ugh, subtitles gross."
Yeah.
So,
Oh God.
so I mean that those are really the only few things I can really think that are a detriment to the film, but that's
Yeah.
really about it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's get into spoiler talk. If you don't want to hear spoilers for the Raid Redemption, you can turn this off now, watch it, and come back later. And we'll get into spoilers in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Like we mentioned with the review just now, talking about the plot doesn't really matter. It really doesn't. What
No.
matters is the action sequences and basically how well choreographed they are and how intense and how well done they are. So even if we give you like bullet by bullet plot details, it won't even really scratch the surface to what's good with the film. So I'm almost kind of don't want to talk about the plot, to be completely honest with you, because of
Yeah.
how pointless it is. So
Yeah, because I mean, you get the one detail that the main character, he's got a pregnant wife, and of course she's just like, yo, I've got a bad feeling about this job you're supposed to do and everything.
yeah,
And of course, when you get through, I want to say about a quarter way through the movie, um, when just shit goes completely fucking wrong. Of course, the main character basically kind of asks his lieutenant, "Hey, we need backup. We're getting fucking slaughtered out here." And then he's kind of like, yeah, problem. There's not going to be any backup
yeah,
because of, well, reasons that this thing is all fucked up. And of course, that's when just things get turned up to 11 with the action, and it gets much more brutal with some of the fight scenes and everything. And
Right.
then towards the end, um, you get to a point where you find out that the main character finds the one person they're supposed to extract, and it turns out that um, it's one of the secondhand man uh, of the drug lord. So of course the main character's going, "Yo, we're here to fucking extract you. You got to get the fuck out of here." And of course, just um, he's just like, I I can't. I'm in too deep. Um, I can't get out of this life. My life as a cop is over. So just may as well dig my heels in and just keep on living the drug lord life, and then
Yeah.
just um, you get to the end, and then of course the big plot twist. Hey, the drug lord's like, hey, you know what? I paid off all the cops. Um, by the way, um, your buddies sold you out to die here because they expected you to die here.
Yeah.
So yeah, just have fun. Have fun knowing that basically by arresting me, the big bad drug lord, that nothing's going to change. They're just going to install somebody else to take over the operation, and just it'll be business as usual. And then you'll be eventually killed by somebody with a kill order, and that'll be it.
Mm.
And then it's just kind of a a downhill run to the end, which is um, the one friend ends up going, yeah, sorry man, just the boss is dead, but I'm just gonna take over and just be the new big boss and everything, because at least with that I can protect you guys as cops, but I don't think you all as cops would be able to protect me if I were to try to exit the life of crime and everything. So
Yeah.
yeah, just short, sweet, focused, and that's it.
Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah. So let's just get into the action sequences. The first sequence in the film that really really impressed me was the scene where they're trying to breach the door when they realize they're being found out after they kill the kid who was the spotter. Remember that scene when they breach the door and it's dark, and then
Yep.
on the next floor there are there are gunmen searching for them, and as soon as the one guy shoots his shotgun shell and they see the light, and it's done in this beautiful slow motion shot where you see the light come out of the bullet and it illuminates the room, and then all of a sudden they start firing on them like crazy. Oh my god, such a good shot. And it
Yep.
and it perfectly encapsulates the tension of the film, where basically at every step of the film they've been had the entire time. Like, they knew they were coming, they were prepared, and they're pretty much lambs to the slaughter at this point.
Yep.
Yeah.
Especially when you have just the one guy realizing, oh God, if you shoot that shotgun shell, we're screwed. And by the time he realizes it, the guy breaching the door has already shot the shot out of the shotgun, and then on top of that, it illuminates the shadows of all the guys right by the door to breach the door. And of course, you've got the gunman a floor above, seeing the shadows, going, "Oh, great, we know where to shoot." And then it's just like, "Oh man, they are so screwed."
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Um. Yeah. So the beginning of the film was more of a, and that's another interesting thing about the film too. In the beginning of the film, it was more of a gunplay kind of film. Lots of shooting, lots of just a lot of gunplay. And then at a certain point of the film, I think after everyone on the police team is slaughtered, pretty much, it turns into a martial arts film with some knife play in it. And that's where I think the fight choreography shines in the film. The one sequence that blew me away wasn't even really a martial arts sequence. It was the point where the main character was charging one of the criminals, and threw him over the staircase, and the guy lands in the staircase on the other end on his back, and it buoys him. Like, it just, you know what I mean? Like, he
Yeah.
basically, it's a brutal hit. Like, oh my God. And the fact that they choreographed that so damn well and make it look as realistic as possible just really was brutal to watch. But that's the thing that I'm usually with you. I don't like a lot of blood. I'm necessarily not a fan of gore, but for some reason this movie still made it satisfying to watch and to a certain extent fun to watch, just because the choreography and the way they stationed the action sequences was done very well in this.
Yeah. I think one of the fun fight scenes was the meth lab scene, where just
Oh yes.
you've just got some insane fight choreography, just things being thrown, and just some real meaty strikes on some of the fights and everything. Just um, excellent choreography there, and just nothing but amazing stuff. But yeah, just um, they got the sound engineering done just right, because when you just hear things just like make impact, it just sounds absolutely brutal.
And you said the key word that I think describes perfectly the action and the effectiveness of the action. That's impact. You constantly feel the impact of the strikes and the hits that happen in this movie. Like, you never watch the movie and think, oh, that looks fake. Oh, that doesn't look that real. That doesn't seem like it hurts. But like when, let's say, the main character smashes somebody's head into a light fixture, the way they pull it off looks like it fucking hurt. The meth lab scene, like you said, like when the main character throws a guy into the column, on a wooden column, and smashes his head, and you see the blood spatter come out from the hit. That looked like it had impact in it. Absolutely hurt, and it's just strangely satisfying to watch these sequences because they're so well done. And even the problem with some of these highly choreographed fight scenes sometimes is that, and this is going to sound weird, and if you want to question me on it, go ahead, because maybe I'm not going to say this well enough. Sometimes they're so well choreographed that they just look fake, and they look like they lack impact, and they look like they lack dramaticism to a certain extent. Like, I like a good choreographed fight scene, but when it looks obvious that it's choreographed, and when it looks obvious that it is, on this step, punch, kick, do this, do that. When it feels like they're obviously just hitting a script point, is when you kind of lose the effectiveness of that fight sequence. Obviously, this movie is choreographed, but it doesn't feel like it. It feels like, not that the fight scenes are real, but there is a desperation to these fight sequences that really heightens the dramatic feel of the fight sequences that happen.
Yeah, and I think also the sound engineering helps as well too, because just like one of the fight scenes in one of the residential halls, where just you've got the main character just smashing a guy's head on just the tile and everything, just hearing the crunch of the
Oh yeah.
tile, just you're just like, oh Lord, that sounds brutal, Jesus.
And good on you for you mentioned it before, and I didn't say it, but good on you again for mentioning it. Yes, the sound engineering, the sound mixing is great in this. Like, when you hear, like, even the gunshots sound really good. When you hear the fight sequences and you hear like the impacts of the kicks, the punches, them slamming into walls, things like that, you hear that crunch, and it is brutal. Like, it is brutal, I will admit, but even with its brutality, it's still enjoyable to me to watch this and to just marvel at what they're doing in this. So, yeah, like, I guess that I think that's the perfect balance of what really struck the chord with me in this movie in the first place. Is that, yes, the fight scenes are obviously choreographed and really detail oriented choreographed, but they're given enough weight that it still feels like. I wonder if am I explaining this well enough? Because I feel like I'm not. Do you know what I mean when I say, like, when something is over choreographed, where it's so obvious it's fake and it's so obvious that this would never happen, that it kind of, unless it's a fantastical kind of movie, it kind of lessens the appeal of the fight scene.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that, especially with being really, really into Asian cinema, because you've got some Jackie Chan movies that, while just um, well, he's a terrific fight choreographer and everything, but yeah, just some of the fight scenes in some of Chan's movies can just look overly stylized, and you're just like, yeah, there's there's no way, but in a vacuum, that some of these some of these sequences in this fight would be able to happen in real life.
Mm,
Just this seems like it would just be in one of those. It has to be in a vacuum. There has to be a perfect storm going on. Everything has to be placed just in the right place, and just everything has to be set completely perfect. Otherwise, this fight won't work.
right. I would excuse Jackie Chan's movies with that, mainly because they're comedies. I mean, I think the vast majority of Jackie Chan's films are comedies, right? Like,
Most of them are comedies, but there are every once in a while a few serious films and stuff.
right.
Like Legend of the Condor Heroes is based on like a Chinese dramatic myth and everything.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
mean, he's got some serious pieces, but even still, some of the fight choreographies in some of the serious movies, they just feel just overly styled, that you're just like, yeah, there's no way this fight could ever happen in real life. Whereas just some of the brutal desperation that you see in the fight choreography in The Raid Redemption, it looks like that it's planted in some sort of realism.
Yeah. I want to highlight one more thing before we end the spoiler talk. The final fight sequence in the film between the
Mad
second,
Dog.
yeah, oh yes, oh yes, the 2-on-1 sequence
Yep.
that I watched. I remember I watched the sequence this morning again, and one thing that struck me, um, I won't spoil I'll spoil how it starts. Okay, so what happens basically is the main character starts to notice that the second in command, who turns out to be his brother, um, basically is getting tortured by Mad Dog, who is the other second. I would say the security person, I
Yeah.
guess. Okay, the security person for the drug dealer, who is a master martial artist, which the movie beautifully shows off in the during the movie. Um, so he notices out of the gleam of his eye that his brother's getting tortured in a room by this guy. He walks in, and then suddenly the guy stops torturing his brother, lets him go, and lets him recuperate. And normally when I would see that, I'd be livid. I'd be like, that is so unrealistic. That is so stupid. Why would he do that? But what's funny about it is that even though realistically it shouldn't have happened that way and you'd be stupid to do that, it still worked because the character pretty much is set up that he just likes the thrill. He just likes the thrill of being in these situations. So, A, it starts to make sense that way. And B, even though really it doesn't make sense, the scene is good enough where it just doesn't matter that it may not make sense to you when it comes to like the story and the characters. But because the fight scene is so well done and just really satisfying to watch, uh, even that mild snafu, I just kind of forgot about it. And I was like, oh, that's a cool scene. It wasn't until at the end of the film I was like, hey, wait a minute. It's like, hold on. That shouldn't have happened. But I didn't care because it was so enjoyable. And it takes a confident director and writer to say, you know what, this may not make sense, or this might hang some people off, but I got something that is so good here that it'll be worth it anyway.
Yeah, just it just kind of felt like just the high point of everything.
Yes.
Just where this is where everything goes down. Things start getting settled and everything, and especially just with Mad Dog really just laying in just full bore, just how brutal he can be and
Yes.
everything. So especially because just for most of the fight, just um, the main character and his brother just getting just completely demolished by him.
Oh
Just
my God.
you just kind of look at the scene, you're just like feeling pity for him. You're just like, God, is there any way they can get out of this? Jesus, he is just completely destroying them.
Yep. Completely working them throughout the entire sequence, and you believe it throughout the entire sequence as well. When the fight's going on too, like you never feel like, oh, this is the part where they fight back, and this is the part where they get the one. Like, no, you never. You start to really get into the fight and get into the psychology of the fight sequence itself. And I have to commend the actors who are in this fight sequence, because it really looks like they did that all in one take. They may not have. I will admit that I don't know if they did or not, but it sure did feel like that fight sequence was incredibly fluid and done so well. And then when eventually certain things happen in the fight sequence. Oh, we're at spoilers. I'll just say it. When Mad Dog finally gets stabbed in the neck, usually that means like that guy slows down, but he sped up, which was like, holy shit! It's like,
Yep.
this is crazy. So yeah, really satisfying like fight sequence in that. Let's get into our final discussion. Go ahead.
Overall, just the Raid Redemption. Again, I'll kind of repeat my thoughts from the beginning. It's a perfectly fine movie. It's very, very focused on just what it sets itself out to be, which is just a pure nonstop action movie. It's a bit gory, so take that into consideration if you're a bit squeamish to blood and maybe some minor torture porn type scenes and stuff like that. Yeah, just otherwise. The main reason you're watching The Raid Redemption is just simply going to be the fight choreography.
Yeah.
There's really not much plot in it, so just if you're expecting something like a very, very serious crime drama, you're not going to get it here.
Yeah. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the review, brutal efficiency in both fight choreography and in structure. It like you mentioned, Zero. It is what it is, and it is just going to be that. The vast majority of the film is action. If you're looking for a good plot and good characterization, this movie does not have it. They heavily rely on tropes to just get the plot along, to get the next action sequence in. And you know what? I think it's for the better. I think it's a very good film. This is my second time watching it, and I didn't like it as much as I did the first time, but that's okay. If I would say that if you're really into action films and you don't mind blood in your action films, I would say this should be one of those movies, if you haven't already, that you must watch. I think it's for an action film, asterisk. It is a great movie. So that's my thought on that. All right, Zero. So we are at the end of the review, but as always, at the end of the review, I have a question for you.
All right.
Oh, you're not going to supersede this like you did in the podcast?
No, I don't have anything lined up.
Okay. That's okay. Okay. So this is going to be a little more detailed than my usual questions, because big news came out this week. And this will all culminate in one thing. Basically, WB Discovery is in 2023 going to merge their Discovery Network and HBO Max into one streaming service. Now, because of this, WB Discovery has been on a tear, canceling TV shows, movies, projects, nearly completed projects, with brutal efficiency, to basically make profit in their company, since they're taking on a lot of debt from the merger they just recently had. Movies such as Batgirl, which was almost complete, are now canceled. The Scoob sequel that was complete is canceled. That's not coming out. And they also pretty much took out 6 movies from HBO Max that were streaming originals from the platform and just delisted it. And apparently they're using that as a write-off tactic to basically, for their finances. Zero, I know you're not big into the business of film and of entertainment, but I have to ask, what are your thoughts about all these cancellations and what's going on with WB Discovery and HBO Max?
From some of the notes that were posted about the financial meeting that happened today, it definitely seems like they're trying to sort of find a middle ground to consolidate both offerings from the Discovery Plus side and then the catalog from the HBO Max side. And I know this particular slide from the presentation from the stockholders meeting has been making the rounds, but there's this slide that's been making the rounds where basically it's got the fact that HBO Max has more male-oriented content and things that people will sort of schedule their lives around, and just things that people really lean in to get serious on. Mm-hmm. Whereas stuff on the Discovery Plus side has been mostly what they claim is female-oriented, and on top of being female-oriented, that it's more for people who relax and people who are a bit more, I guess, spontaneous. To a degree of sorts, because they were saying that just it doesn't seem like the Discovery Plus offerings were things that people just kind of blocked off their schedule just to make time to go watch or whatever. Right. So at least on that end, I think it seems like they're trying to do some sort of consolidation, realignment of their streaming services and everything. As far as the canceled projects and everything, it's a bit of a shame. It's a bit of a shame because of the fact that just you got some of these projects that are pretty much one and done, pretty much complete, and because this was built to this particular project may have been built to be a streaming special, it was just nope, just pull the plug on it, rip the bandage off, just cancel it.
Yeah.
Even though it's almost done. Rationale being this isn't going to work as a streaming special. It should have been a movie, but tough luck, whatever. Project's canceled. We're moving on. And then yet you have, on the other hand, you've got projects like The Flash, which are quickly becoming massive money pits with just no end in sight. And you would have figured, just with how much of a money pit that the Warner Brothers Flash movie is becoming, that they would have just pulled the plug a long time ago, but here we are.
With regards with the Flash, I think there's one reason now that they're going to keep going with that, and that's the controversy. I mean, with everything that's going on with Ezra Miller, and their issues that they're having with the law, I think they're going to ride that controversy into making big bucks. I think that's really the only reason why that movie is sticking around. That and the fact that it's supposed to introduce Bruce Wayne back into the movie, into the DCEU, with Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne, I should say, into the DCEU. So I think that's why they're keeping that going. And from what I've heard also, is that the movie actually isn't bad. So they think that that it's good enough where they can make money. Whereas with Batgirl, on the other hand, I didn't hear that much good or bad. But judging on how WB Discovery is doing all this, it looks like they're leaning heavily on marketing and on analyzation terms and stuff like if you look at the what you say, what's going on the rounds right now, as when they're describing HBO Max as something that's male skewed and Discovery as female skewed. I know people are going to balk at that and say that's really a generalization, that's ridiculous, but these companies, the bigger they are, the more data points they want. And instead of just treating them as data points, they treat them as really things to live by and to gauge whether something is quote unquote good enough to put money towards. And because basically this is me guessing in terms of Batgirl. My guess is that unless the film is of quality of, let's say, Wonder Woman, which I believe is a very good film, they don't believe that the movie will make that much money, and if the quality isn't matching that, they decide to scrap it. Is what I'm basically thinking is happening here. I'm not saying that Batgirl is guaranteed to be bad. I just think that they looked at it and went, this isn't of the quality where it will not only get critical acclaim, but audiences will love it, which will bring in more dollars. I think that's what happened with Batgirl on that one. Same thing with Scoob. I think they looked at it and said, I don't think it's the quality that we need it to be. We're scrapping it. Okay. With that being said, in regards to WB Discovery merging HBO Max and Discovery Plus, I don't get it, to be completely honest. To say that HBO Max only skews male is really ridiculous, because there's a lot of programming that I can only imagine maybe females are interested in.
It's an oversimplification at
yeah,
that.
It definitely, yes, you're absolutely right. It definitely is. I'm sitting here wondering what their plan is, a plan of attack. Yes, they want to basically, what they look like they're doing is streamlining their businesses to a fine-tooth comb to where it can run efficiently that way. That's why they're getting rid of, good God, 70% of the staff of HBO Max. And they're going to lean it into bringing it all together with Discovery Plus and make it run more efficiently that way. Yeah, I don't... But what I think some are afraid of is that some of the things that what's good about HBO Max is probably going to go away. Like, they're getting rid of HBO originals. Like, they're canceling them. That's what it looks like. So if it's not a mainline HBO series, or it doesn't fit as a mainline HBO series, it sounds like they're canceling it. So something like The Flight Attendant, that's going to be canceled, even though that's fairly popular. That's going to be canceled. F-Boy Island, I think, is another one. That's going to be canceled. That's going to be gone. Yeah. It looks like that they want to be Netflix, and they're not realizing that Netflix has some issues that is because of exactly what they're doing right now. So I can't look at this but see that this is a mistake. Like, that they are going in the wrong direction here. And they're doing it to be cheap. They're not doing it to make it better. They're doing it to be more cheap is the other problem. So, yeah, like, that's my feeling of this. I don't know what else more to say, really. You have more to add?
No, not really. Mostly it just seems like they're trying to lean out their operation to become extremely lean, and at the same time not realizing that by cutting off too much, that there's no going back. There's no, oh shit, we got to take that back. I mean, there's an old carpentry phase that is taught to a lot of people who start into carpentry, which is measure twice, cut once. Mm-hmm. And it just seems like that they're not doing that. It's just kind of, nope, cut everything that we think is extraneous. We'll worry about the consequences later.
Yes.
And later is going to be much more sooner and much more of a rude awakening than they have any idea.
Right. I wanted to pose this question to you too, real quick. With the cancellation of 6 movies that were Max originals, they also have zero plans to put that on Blu-ray, so people can buy the hard disc of that. How do you feel about that? I mean, we deal with this with gaming too, where companies are more and more going to digital side. How do you feel about them basically saying, if it's not going to be in our service, you have no access to it?
I can say that there's going to be a very sudden spike in piracy. That's for damn sure.
Yep, absolutely.
Especially from the fact that um, granted, the shows may not have been hot on their visual metrics and everything. You can sure as hell bet that there were probably a number of people who may have quite liked those 6 particular originals, and they would probably pay gobs and gobs of money to just get their hands on some form of media just to keep forever. And
Yeah.
for HBO or excuse me, WB Discovery to basically go, no, we're just gonna pull the plug on it, remove any single trace of it, and that's just gonna be it. And
Yeah.
if you don't like it, tough nuts, then all they're doing is just driving these people towards piracy, and they're just going to get exactly what they want, which is a copy of the show that they so loved. And of course, just it's going to be bad because you're going to have just so many more people just go, oh, well, if they think they can be Netflix and just cancel shows after they start getting good, then they don't need my subscription. I'll fucking quit my subscription, and I'll just start or considering piracy because I want to be able to watch these shows for years and years on end. And if HBO Max or whatever the hell they call the service decides that they don't think it's worth keeping around, and they're just going to kill it with no way for me to keep it on Blu-ray, DVD, digital download, or whatever, then nope, fuck that. They don't deserve my subscription money, and I can just see it now. Just subscription numbers are going to drop, and then you're just going to have them griping and bemoaning, going, "Yeah, we're seeing numbers drop, and we just don't know why."
Yeah.
And then, of course, it's going to be, "Yeah, you know why, you frickin' dingus? It's because everyone's decided to pirate your crap instead."
Yeah. I mean, the issue isn't, well, I do have an issue with the fact that they just keep it on streaming and you can't get a hard copy on some of these movies. But that's not the issue really with HBO Max in this. The issue is they're literally pulling the movies, so you can't even watch it on streaming. Like,
Yep.
one movie is, and this is a terrible movie, by the way, American Pickle. The only reason why I remember it is because of how bad it is. But I bet there are fans of American Pickle who would like to watch it again, and now they can't. I mean, that is that's screwed. That's terrible. So now it's becoming that these are just disposable media, and when you get to that point where people realize, oh, this is just disposable and it means nothing, they're going to have less attachment to the properties and less attachment to the movies and TV shows and everything. So, I mean, look at the show Friends. Okay, Friends was on Netflix for God knows how long, and The Office. When The Office moved from Netflix to Peacock, what happened? All the people that wanted to watch The Office went to Peacock, because that brand and that show is that good, and there's an attachment to that they will stay with that service to watch The Office. Now, if Peacock all of a sudden said, guess what, we're taking off The Office, and that's it, you're not going to be able to watch it anymore, that would piss a lot of people off, and then that'll leave a bad taste in the people's mouth of watching your content. So if they know that, oh yeah, I'll enjoy it, but if they're going to take it out and not let me watch it again, well, fuck them. I'm not going to even bother. I mean, that's going to be a problem. At least with Criterion and Netflix. I mean, with Criterion and with Netflix, they're taking some of their better movies and putting it on Blu-ray and 4K. Like movies like Beasts of No Nation, Uncut Gems, Marriage Story. The Irishman, which we reviewed and talked about. Yeah, those movies are being at least being put onto Blu-ray and 4K, so people can get the hard copies of those. But it doesn't look like even HBO Max is going to even allow that, or WB Discovery is going to allow that, because they're going to look at the numbers and say it's not efficient enough for us to go to a press to press these into discs and sell them in stores, because we don't think it will make enough money to do that unless we pay an ungodly premium. And that's awful. That is just terrible. And you're going to have, I'm going to notice it now, you're going to have classic movies. You're going to have movies that people adore at some point, which will then all of a sudden be off the service for no reason other than the publisher wants a tax write-off, and then they'll never show it again, and the only way you can watch is piracy. That is a terrible idea. The least you could do is just say, okay, you cancel it, fine, just leave it up there, so if I want to watch it again, it's there. Whatever. Fine. That's what you should do. But to just pull it off and just say, oh, and you can't watch it anymore, that's terrible. It's awful. I can't believe that they're doing that. Well, actually, I can, because they're thinking it more of a business than anything else. But all right, so we're gonna wrap this baby up. But before we do, we talk about the next film that we're going to watch next week, and we're gonna do something a little different. Okay, we have the next 2 films planned, and you're gonna understand why that is once Zero tells us what we're gonna watch next week.
We will be watching one of my favorite crime drama films, and that would be 2002's Hong Kong action thriller film Infernal Affairs.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
This one has a very, very special place in my mind, mostly because of the fact that just on top of being a crime drama, it's also got a lot of Buddhist philosophy and imagery in it, with just a lot of the values, and morals that are just spread throughout this entire movie, especially just with the psychological element of the movie too. I can't really go into too much, or else I'll end up spoiling things. But
right.
Yeah, it's an absolutely fantastic movie.
Okay, so now that you've hyped it up and you've basically told us it's a fantastic movie, yeah, okay, that's great. We're going to be watching Infernal Affairs, the 2002, 2001? 2002 film directed by Andrew Lau and Alan Mack. And because we're watching Infernal Affairs, I suggested that we then watch the remake the following week. And if you don't know, the remake is the classic Martin Scorsese film, The Departed. So some of you may not know that The Departed is a remake of a movie, but it is. So next week, we're going to watch Infernal Affairs. And then the following week, we're going to watch The Departed. And we think this is a good idea because then we could talk about the differences between the 2 films. I know you haven't seen The Departed, right?
Yeah.
I haven't seen Infernal Affairs. So this is going to be a very interesting dynamic for the next couple of weeks. So you should tune in and listen to us talk about these 2 films in the next couple of weeks. And of course, if you have a suggestion for us to watch, for a movie for us to watch, you can leave a comment below the video, or you can email us at zerowizcast@gmail.com with your suggestion for the next Capital Games Movie Club. So on that note, that'll be the end of this episode of the Capital Games Movie Club. Tune in next week where we talk about Infernal Affairs. We will talk to you next week. I am The Wiz.
And I'm Zero.
Talk to you next week.